Welcome back to the show. I hope everyone is doing well. My name is Conspiracy, and science is still on assignment. Over the last little while, I've noticed an increase in the number of photos from history popping up online with people who allegedly are from the future. Oftentimes, they are caught holding or talking on devices that look similar to a modern-day cell phone. Are these really time travelers? If the photos are true, have the time travelers always been a part of the photograph? Or have they recently been inserted? Have they been somehow manipulating or altering our timeline? So brew some coffee, pull up a chair, and open your mind. In this week's episode, we'll take a look at my ever-evolving theory on time travel over coffee. We'll be right back. When I was young, we had a mirror in the bathroom that had 3 sections. The 2 end pieces could fold outward. When I would place the 2 end pieces at 90 degrees, the reflections that created an illusion of an infinite number of worlds. I remember sitting there, standing on the counter, staring into the multiverse, imagining each reflection was a different universe. Sometimes when I would move my head back and forth, I would think that there was a delay in the reflections. I began to wonder, maybe they weren't actual universes. Instead, maybe I was looking backwards and forwards in time. At what point in my timeline did I exist relative to the others staring back at me? As I got older, I learned that there was actual science behind trying to figure out the nature of time and reality, trying to figure out the mysteries of space and time. First, I think we need to ask the question, not is time travel possible, but what are we expecting from time travel itself? Would we want to be simply observing, or would we want to interact with the people and objects in any given time or place? I think both of these scenarios lead to vastly different expectations of what it means to travel through time. Is time travel even possible? Without a doubt in my mind, given enough time, literally anything is possible. Therefore, at some point in the future or the past, the ability to travel through time will be made possible. So this brings me to the question of what are we expecting from time travel? Would it be like in the movie Back to the Future, where we could go back in time and meet our parents and change the future? Or would it be more like Doctor Who, traveling anywhere in the universe at any time? The passage of time is relative to the observer. Humanity has created a system to measure what we perceive as the past and the future based on the rotation of the Earth, which creates night and day and the changing of the seasons. We need this measurement to plan for the future based on what has come before. We have broken these changes down into seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, and so on. The system works on Earth, but not on other planets. These measurements have different rates. Time as we know it isn't a constant in the universe. Therefore, does time even exist? How could we possibly travel through time if we don't even know if time exists? Well, it's complicated, because it depends on what you mean by exist. To explain this, I have to go a little deep into some theoretical physics and talk about stuff that I really don't understand, so bear with me. From what I understand, there seems to be a crisis in the field of physics. Dr. Peter Venkman famously said, "Human sacrifice, dogs, cats living together, mass hysteria." It's kind of like that. For over a century, physics has used general relativity and quantum mechanics to describe how things work. This epic battle to explain everything. It's like Jim and Michael trying to co-manage the office. Jim would handle the day-to-day, or the little stuff, while Michael looked after the big picture. And if you've seen this episode, you will know that there's a lot of overlap. And the experiment was a horrible train wreck. The solution seems simple enough. One theory to rule them all. One manager. String theory was the attempt to overcome the conflict between the two theories. String theory replaces particles with strings that vibrate in as many as 10 different dimensions. 6 are hidden from view, and the other 4 are space and time. If string theory is correct, then everything in the universe is a one-dimensional string instead of a point like a particle that resonates at various frequencies, similar to a guitar string. Each note corresponds to a distinct particle, such as an electron or a photon. It's believed that one of these notes corresponds to gravity. Gravity is the glue that holds everything in the universe together. Unfortunately, string theory isn't without its flaws. It's not like Oswald's magic bullet. This is where loop quantum gravity comes into the picture. Picture the fabric of space and time is made up of a network of small loops. It's funny because years ago, before I knew anything about loop quantum gravity, I thought time and space was like a ball of rubber bands all bound together. Our timelines would be overlapping, bumping into each other throughout the ball. So would we be able to travel through these loops or chunks of time? Maybe this is like the time vortex in Doctor Who. But apparently, gravity can emerge out of a two-dimensional surface. The math involved seems to work out better in 2 dimensions rather than 3. To further complicate things, we get introduced to the holographic principle, which means that all the information in an object is encoded on the surface. Gravity and space-time emerge out of this quantum horizon. If we were to measure the quantum horizon, we would look at the fuzziness of the surface. It's that fuzziness that represents pixels of space-time. In a 2-dimensional holographic universe, could we manipulate the pixels of the universe to suit our needs? Is this pixelation further evidence that we are living in a computer program? Similar to how pixels on a screen work, they are constantly being updated. The pixels turn on and off to form an image that can only be seen from a distance. Could we travel through time and space in the same sort of way? Now that I've fully explained quantum mechanics and general relativity, I think I can get back to the question, does time really exist? I came across this explanation from Rana Ajahari, a professor of physics at Caltech. In the same way that temperature is not real, but describes how a bunch of molecules are vibrating, space-time might not be a real thing. We see a flock of birds and schools of fish undertaking cohort motions in groups, but they are really made up of individual animals. We say that the group behavior is emergent. It may be that something that arises out of pixelation of space-time that is given the name gravity, because we don't yet understand what the guts of space-time are. While physics might eliminate time, it seems to leave causation intact. If everything in the universe is happening because of an effect by something else, this would also support the theory of superdeterminism rather than free will. Therefore, everything has to be determined. Time travel, as we know it, cannot exist. Traveling through time and interacting with people and objects would create a paradox, an overlap of these pixels in the universe. If we are able to visit the past or future and have the ability to interact, it is much more likely that we are not actually time traveling, but traveling to parallel universes similar to our own. How is the nature of reality tied to time travel? We observe objects because light from a source, like the sun, falls on an object. The object reflects the light in all possible directions. This reflected light from the objects reaches our eyes. Our brains receive the information from our eyes, transforming the light into the object. When light travels out in all directions, with multiple sources observing the same object, this can create different perspectives to any given object. Stay with me for a minute. For over 100 years, we have had the technology to capture images and then later moving images using various photography means. These methods have the ability to capture a moment or multiple moments to be viewed and replayed over and over again. Here's a little bit of a thought experiment. What if there was a powerful enough receiver capable of capturing and converting light from the stars and capturing enough information that we could become fully immersed in the light to experience in great detail moments from distant stars? And depending on where the receiver is pointed, the observer could have any moment projected and be witnessed to any specific moment, essentially traveling through time, both forwards and backwards. Right now, we're able to point our telescopes into space and see light from stars light years away. Light that started its journey a long time ago and continues even after we have observed it. Now, what if we were being observed by an advanced civilization, alien or human? They could be watching us alongside us. What these beings would be observing would essentially be a recording, a pixelated version of our history. They would be able to scan through our entire history to time travel. We would be unaware that we were being observed because the observer would be watching outside our timeline, but with all the detail of actually being present at the original event. Everything we are is transmitted by light being reflected through the universe, even parts we don't fully understand yet, like consciousness. If an object doesn't exist until it's observed, how are we able to be alive? We can observe the outside world but can't directly observe our insides, like our hearts and lungs. We would just be an empty shell until someone opened us up and looked inside. Therefore, consciousness must be linked to something else, or we are merely a recording that is being watched by an advanced civilization. The light in the universe is there for us to observe. There's a theory that we would only be able to time travel back to the point where time travel was first invented. I don't believe that at all, because if time travel works the way that I'm suggesting, then the moment light begins out into the universe, we would be able to travel back to that point. And even before that, as long as there's light in the universe, we would be able to travel back to that point. I don't know, what do you guys think? Does any of that make sense? Let me know in the comments. My brain hurts from that episode, thinking about time, the wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. So I'm going to leave it there for this week. And remember, being paranoid is smart. We'll see you next time. This week's episode of Science vs. Conspiracy over coffee was produced by Lithologica. Research and writing was done by Bob Homer and Jennifer Timer.